Today we're talking about Pick and Pay. What is currently happening in the retail environment in South Africa as well as in the rest of Africa? Specifically in South Africa, retailers are extremely hard hit by load shedding. Pick and Pay has been very hard hit by its biggest competition, which is Shoprite. Unemployment, rising food prices, and other household costs put increasing strain on the South African consumer. People need to eat. No, they don't need to put fancy cheeses in the basket that carry a high margin. Instead, they can put baked beans in the basket that are on promotion because every grocery retailer is fighting over the same base of customers and their affordability challenges. Interestingly, when we look at the new grocery basket from June 2023, we see that Pick and Pay has the most expensive basket, with Checkers coming in second, Woolworths coming in third. Also, interestingly, we see Checkers represented, or ShopRite, represented at three parts of the market, which is the high, the middle, and the lower end. If you look at the market as 100 cans of baked beans, we know that 60 of those cans are sold in the formal grocery market, while around 40 are sold informally. Pick and Pay sells about 16 of these cans. ShopRite, its biggest competitor, sells about 32. Most of the time, the consumer will buy the cheapest and most convenient can of beans. Load shedding has cost Pick and Pay about 60 million rand a month to burn diesel. This has led to some bad news for Pick and Pay across the board, which we'll dig into a little bit later. In terms of operations, at the end of February 2023, Pick and Pay operated 957 company-owned Pick and Pay stores, 428 company-owned Boxer stores, 747 franchise stores, and 72 TM supermarkets, which are in Zimbabwe. About 92% of the stores are in South Africa, while the rest are outside of South Africa. Over the course of this financial year, Pick and Pay Group closed 13 company-owned stores, 39 franchise stores, 5 stores in Namibia, and 1 store in Zambia. But in total, Pick and Pay Group has increased their store footprint by 123 net new stores. This is mostly made up of 50 new Boxer stores and 82 new Pick and Pay stores. 8 new stores were also opened in Zimbabwe. The QualiSave banner was launched on 15 August 2023, and 155 stores were converted to QualiSave by February 2023. In terms of store footprint, we can see here in this graph that South Africa really does have the most stores, with Zimbabwe following with 72 stores. Also notably, Namibia 35 stores, Eswatini with 31, Botswana 19, Lesotho 4, Nigeria 2. In terms of number of stores, we can look at these pie charts and we can see that, again, South Africa has the highest amount of stores. And the number of employees also, the main bulk of it sits in South Africa. This year, Pick and Pay did not report on its franchise employees. In the integrated report, the group only reports employing 90,000 people, and the same as 2021 and 2022. The group reports the number of company-owned employees in each year, but not franchise employees. When we start looking at revenue and profit, we start to see a picture of how the company is doing. Over the course of the financial year 2023, Pick and Pay managed to create an additional 8.7 billion in sales relative to last year's revenue. This is an increase of 8.9%. Over time, we see that Pick and Pay has grown their revenue. In terms of segmental revenue, we see that 96% of revenue comes from South Africa, while only 4% comes from the rest of Africa. When looking at profit before tax, we can see that the profit before tax has decreased by just over 3%, and it is still below profit levels from 2017. The profit before tax graph looks very bumpy, and it looks like Pick and Pay might be in for a bit of a struggle going forward. When we look at segmental profit before tax, we can see that the rest of Africa actually brings in 9% of profit before tax, which is quite a high percentage considering the amount of revenue that the rest of Africa brings in. This to us means that the rest of Africa business is still very profitable. However, now that we're looking at the 2024 financial year, Pick n Pay is struggling. It told its shareholders that the reason for a drop in sales was down to a lack of promotional activity, and this reason comes down to load shedding, and the retailer needed to address this crisis. Between March and June, Pick n Pay spent 300 million on diesel for generators at stores. When we look at the executive directors, we see at the helm Chief Executive Officer Peter Boone and Chief Financial Officer Lerina Olivier. We can look at the average remuneration of execs at Pick n Pay, which has gone up slightly, and we see in the green the total remuneration is up on average to about 12 million, and total salary is just 9.6 million. When we look over the course of time at CEO pay, we see a big jump in 2021, which is when the previous CEO Brasher retired and received a very large LTI. Now we can see that Peter Boone is starting to earn quite well. His salary sits at about 10 million, though he's received a cash bonus this last year of 9.8 million and an LTI of almost 6 million. When we dig down into his total remuneration, we can see these big bonuses that play a big role in his total remuneration. When he signed on, he was awarded a total of 1 million shares as a sign-on bonus. 500,000 shares were awarded during the 2021-22 financial year, and these shares will become his in June 2024. The rest of the 500,000 shares will be awarded in June 2023 and will become his in June 2026. Suzanne Ackerman retired as an executive director in 2022, and she became a non-executive, and the same with Jonathan Ackerman. Average base salary of the executive directors increased by over 15%. In 2022, average remuneration, excluding LTI payment, decreased by 31%. However, this increased again in 2023 by 17.7%. There was a sharp decrease in average remuneration, including LTI, between 2021 and 22. This can be attributed to the very large LTI payment made to Brasher on retirement. In terms of non-executive directors, the group has 12 non-executive directors, 8 of whom are considered independent. The non-executive chair of Pick n Pay Group is Gareth Ackerman. On average, the non-executive director remuneration went down almost 10%. When we look at the workers, we know that retail and wholesale sectors specifically employ an estimated 2.8 million people, which is 22% of the national labour force in South Africa. Pick n Pay reports employing 59,819 people in its company-owned stores. Using this information from the company's report, the number of employees in franchise stores is estimated to be about 30,000, but this is not reported on. The total number of the group's employees remained approximately the same in 21, 22, and 2023, at around 90,000. Based on the 2023 Sustainability Report, Pick n Pay Group reports the following. Women represent 64% of the workforce and 32% of top and senior management. 99.53% of its employees are permanent, but there is no differentiation between permanent full-time and permanent part-time or flexi-time. 44% of its employees belong to a trade union. According to Pick n Pay, the total number of corporate employees increased by 2,828 over the course of the last year. Big companies typically don't report on worker wages or the wage gap. Information sharing between unions is critical in the battle to achieve fair remuneration for workers. Company information is a tool that unions can use to prepare for negotiations. For example, if a negotiator knows that the company had an increase in both revenue and profit and that it was able to award its CEO a 20% remuneration increase worth millions, it can reinforce their demands for increases in workers' wages. The average annual income for an entry-level worker at Pick n Pay in South Africa is 61,200. CEO Peter Boone received a salary of 10 million. This is 175 times what the lowest paid worker was paid. However, he received total remuneration of 30 million. This is 498 times what the lowest paid worker was paid. You can look at further resources at our LRS MNC monitor or LRS Agreed. You'll find the links in the notes below. Please email me if you have any further questions.